Okay, so I made a lot of progress the last 2 months I haven't been posting, so we're gonna get right into it. We got everything required to plumb up the car, everything required to wire the car, and then I'm measuring up for a custom set of coilovers. So let's get into it. To begin, I'm finishing the last bits of welding on my custom header before I can install it for good. A weld is ran on the inside of the tube to provide extra strength before it's ground smooth. The double slip joints can now get final welded now that everything else is finalized. That being said, I realized with the header in place, I would not be able to get a hose on for my oil drain. So I cut the old AN fitting off and bought a steel 90 to weld on and gave me a tight radius. I also bought an extension to make it easier to put a hose on. I can finally put all the pieces together, but if I have any hope of ever getting the header back apart, I use Copa Slip as an anti-seize. Driver controls are something I haven't addressed at all. That changes today. I have an FIA style electric kill switch and a 15-button CAN keypad from Haltech. To mount it all up, I have some laser cut brackets from Sencut Send. Next up, I'm mounting the fuel pressure regulator on the engine. This is an Aeromotive A1000 and it's more than capable of flowing as much fuel as I can throw at it. Holes are drilled and tapped into the alternator bracket for a clean install. In a previous episode, I ported the intake for this motor, so to make the most of it, the new gaskets need to be opened up for the bigger hole. While I'm on the motor, these are my Deechworks fuel injectors and rails. The injectors are 1500 cc's or about 3 times bigger than stock. That's the cost of running E85. And to make sure my fuel pressure is right, I got a pressure gauge. However, this will probably be replaced by a sensor in the future. This is the full suite of Haltech vehicle management. The Elite 1500 controls everything on the motor side, while the PD16 controls everything else. It controls the entire car from fans to taillights. It's about time they finally get put in. Now it's time for some more electrical bits to get installed. This is a Haltech wideband O2 module. It tells the 1500 the mixture of air to fuel particles in the engine. These are bulkhead connectors, allowing you to pass current through the firewall without any grommets. Then we have the flex fuel sensor. This measures ethanol content in the fuel, allowing the 1500 to make corrections to the amount of fuel it puts in the engine. Believe it or not, I got this nice little bracket for it on Etsy and these AN fitting adapters from Summit. They will get the job done and look good at the same time. To filter the fuel, I got this probably overkill filter from Deechworks. It's a 10 micron filter for a very high level of filtration. The electrical bulkheads are as easy as drilling a few holes and then bolting them right in. The O2 sensor install is two parts. First is installing the controller, which takes just 2 bolts. Then you have to install a bung for the sensor in the exhaust. But it all needs to be put together first. The position of the bung is critical. It should be at a slight downward angle to allow water and fuel to run out of the sensor. But it should also be 7 inches from the turbo and as far from the exhaust tip as possible. All that goes out the window because while 10 inches is great in the bedroom, it's not ideal for an O2 sensor. So I'm gonna put it there. I'll be honest, I just messed up. So while the sensor goes in happy now, it won't when there's a wastegate pipe in the way. It's almost like I'm very dumb. However, all is not lost. I'll call it the Dyno O2 bung and make another pipe. Plug it for now and say it was all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. Got it? So I'm gonna put it there. Rounding out the exhaust is the wastegate springs. Wastegates come with a variety of springs that can be mixed and matched to achieve different boost pressures. Ideally, you want the springs to be equal half of your target boost, so in my case, I used blue and a yellow spring to equal 15 pounds. Water fittings were also added to help cool the wastegate during long track sessions. Air temperature sensors are required to allow the ECU to make fuel corrections based on temperature. Hotter air is less dense and therefore requires less fuel. I installed it directly into an old PCV valve hole for a hidden install. While I was at it, I found a phenolic spacer lying around, so I figured why not throw it on. time now to do a final install on all my intake components. This is a knock sensor. It tells the ECU when things aren't hunky-dory inside the combustion chamber. All it takes to install it is a single bolt torqued to 15 pounds. Grounds are one of the most forgotten things on a chassis. No one wants to grind off fresh paint to weld one on. These bolts are stainless, which means even once the chassis is painted, they can stay bare metal and not rust. Last episode, I took the suspension off to weld up all the hidden and hard to get places I missed. But now it's time to put it back in so I can measure for a custom set of coilovers. Measuring them up is a fairly straightforward process. To order my shocks, I need to know things like overall length, total travel, diameter, etc. Before I get out the tape measure though, I need to install these Tarot Engineering 986 strut tops. While having a lower profile, they also feature a monoball design. Monoballs have no give unlike traditional rubber bushings. They give much better handling and feel. To begin, I measure my front and rear ride height so I can match it later. Here you can see just how much shorter they really are. With ride height verified, I can finally measure up my shocks. And with all my measurements, I drew them up in CAD to give it an eye check, and then it's off to MCS to work their magic. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. A lot of work is done. Everything is ready now for it to be wired and plumbed. So with wiring, there's a lot to learn, and I'm eager to show you. So, if you don't want to miss that, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.